Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader and today we'll be focusing on the 8th National Youth Conference which took place on Saturday in the attendance of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and in the participation of 1,600 youth from all over Egypt. Of course, we'll be dissecting what happened on Saturday in 3 different sessions. The first was about violence and terrorism, not just in Egypt, but as a global phenomenon, how to be focusing on combating terrorism in Egypt, in the region and in the world. The second session took place on Saturday and focused on the fake news and the social media usage in Egypt and the world, how people get addicted to the social media and spreading false news all over the country and all over the world. And the third and final session of the National Youth Conference in the attendance of President al-Sisi was about the session of asking the President. Many questions from all over Egypt posted on the online website of the conference directed to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and answered by the President himself about education, about terrorism, about different subjects that we'll be talking more about tonight on the Daily Debate. And I am honored to be having with me in the studio tonight Dr. Mohammed Taha, the head of the Leadership and Management Development Center at the Ministry of Public Business Sector, to be focusing more on the 8th edition of the National Youth Conference. Thank you very much for being with us today, Dr.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you so much.
We will be starting straight away with a report discussing and detailing what happened on Saturday. So let's see it.
The 8th National Youth Forum concluded its sessions on Saturday with the opening session evaluating the local and international counter-terrorism efforts. Addressing the panel, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that terrorism wouldn't have succeeded if not supported by some countries. He referred to terrorism as cancer and a monster that has gone out of control of the entities that initiated it. He referred to Taliban schools in Pakistan, which recruited energetic youth. However, the future of those students remained ambiguous then until they were among the wave of the returnees from Afghanistan, which Egypt received some of them. He further noted that weakening the power of the national state is the main goal of terrorism. The president said that terrorism was used for destroying Syria and Libya, along with other countries in Africa, adding that terrorism is now seeking to undermine the Egyptian state. President al-Sisi reiterated that the Egyptian army is the main pillar of the whole region and that the religious discourse should cope up with modern age. A total of 1,600 participants attended the conference. Those include members of the Presidential Leadership Program, PLP, university students, young politicians, young engineers, young physicians, and young businessmen.
Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate. That was the first report of the evening and was focusing on what happened on Saturday. More specifically, Dr. Mohammed Taha, about the first session of the National Youth Conference in the attendance of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. It was focusing on terrorism, means of fighting terrorism locally and internationally. The second session focused on fake news and the usage of social media in this day and age. And of course, the third session was Ask the President. How do you evaluate the conference in its entirety on Saturday?
Actually, that was a kind of a gem in a bullet. That was one day that is extensive work, that is full of very informative, and they have got a lot of messages in it. For example, with the first session with terrorism and fighting terrorism, a very important message came that religious institutes should take their role in the right communication with the public. Yes. And using the new tools of communication and the right tool of communication. Communication now, it's a science. So behavior science that should be used well by everyone to send the message in the right way. A very important thing that the president said is that religious institutes should take the role, whether the church or the mosque, and religious institutions as well as education, like Al-Azhar and other things. So there should be a type of, that was really important to highlight that there is something missing, and we should highlight that we have to use the modern way of communication, the efficient way of communication, in order to cope with what's happening, with the development, because the terrorist groups and the terrorist organizations are using what is being discussed in the second session, social media. And in the social media and the exchange of news and the transformation of news and so on, without a backbone of good education and right messages that being sent through the right channels, yes, there was, we have still a weak part in our fight towards or against terrorism. So the weak part here should be, or the gap should be filled by choosing the right way of communication to be up to date, as just he said, up to date to meet the new era and the new development.
Yes, Doctor, you said that something is missing, and we can see evidently that the National Youth Conferences are trying to be the link between the youth of Egypt and the state and, of course, the whole of the country. Do you think that the National Youth Conferences in its 8th edition evolved and they have more importance now and effectiveness in Egypt?
Well, I cannot say evolved or not, because what I see is 8 conferences. Some of them were with the African youth and some with the Egyptian youth in different areas geographically distributed in Egypt, as we were just discussing. But the most important thing is that they are being used now as the media channels, the right media channels, the right communication channels, that they have directly communication from the president to the people, to the public, to the youth, and it's being aired all the time, and there is nothing to hide there, and there are no questions to be banned, and everything is just clear. So this is the right communication that we should have. This is the right way of dealing with youth that are energetic, they are loaded with information, that they are ready to transfer knowledge, they are ready to share knowledge, and they wanted the opposite partner or the opposite part to deal with that. So what is being done through the youth conferences, that is really vital and really important and doing its role from my point of view. With the youth conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, we said that there are 2,500, they're going to their countries, and they are the right representatives and ambassadors to Egypt. Now here in Egypt, with the diversification of people there in the hall, in the conference, that was a really good choice, that those are the entrepreneurs, those are the people who are ready to take the lead after a few years. So it is, and the question answers period was as well, Ask the President has about less than 500,000 questions, and they are all clear and to the point, and the President did not say but what is there on the table, and nothing to be nothing to be hidden. And he has nothing to hide. So that is the right communication channel that we need. That is the right attitude that we want to need. That this is the 8th. I think by time, maybe after 5 or 6 more conferences, you will find those people or those youth are, with diversification and with changing roles, this will be something that we'll be talking about after 20 years from now. That the ideas came out of these conferences.
Yes.
Really established something in the Egyptian state.
One of the ideas or problems being tackled during the 8th edition of the National Youth Conference is fighting terrorism regionally, locally and internationally. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that uncovering the states funding terrorism is the main cause of eradicating, or the main reason behind the eradication of terrorism. How do you see the importance of uncovering the states funding terrorism throughout the world?
This is the right thing to do, because without that, there will always be hidden things.
Yes.
There will always be, whims coming and going. So uncovering that, this is the right thing, but it should be in the right time. So I think that we learned since 2011 that things are being done in the right time, and uncovering the country that funds and abuses its resources in funding, and I'm saying abuses its resources, and I mean it, funding terrorist groups. That is it is the time, because we cannot just wait for that. After a while, if you keep on keeping the secret there, after a while it will not have its efficiency. Now it is efficient. Now it's good. That it is the high time to show the people in the Egyptian public who is funding and why. And so this will be kind of awareness that and will be a clear message for the Egyptian about what was happening 7 or 8 years ago or 10 years ago.
President al-Sisi also described terrorism as a monster that got out of control of its creators. Do you think that it is only natural now that terrorism is attacking its creators?
I think this is the life cycle. It is just life cycle. It's always, and away from politics, I think this is the karma. It will just go back, in a way or another. So it's the life cycle of terrorist attacks, and terrorist groups. Once they feel that their job is done, and when their creators leave them, they will have to eat itself up and uncover certain things. So this is the life cycle of a vicious circle, that.
So do you think that the benefits of funding and sponsoring terrorism is more than the monster that will attack you as the backer or funder of terrorism?
I don't know. I don't. Let me rephrase your question.
Yes.
You think that funding or backing those people will just come back to them again?
Yes, in a different shape.
In different shape. This is, again, it is the cycle. This is a vicious cycle. Once they start, it will end up in the same way. It is the groups that and it has been there. Osama bin Laden at one time was killed by those who created him. God created him, but created his group.
Yes.
So it is kind of, and that was a vivid example that he was killed by assassinated by the same people who supported him, because he wouldn't have been there without the support of certain bodies, which and these bodies might be American, might be Russian, might be whatever it is, but at the very end he was killed in an intelligence operation in Afghanistan, and he was among his men. And this is the cycle. Whether he was killed by the Afghani, by the Russian, by the American, I don't know. But I know that he was killed by what he created. What he was created by, or his group was created by certain powers. He was killed by these powers, whether they agreed or recruited a certain. It's normal.
During the session, President Sisi also said that as Egyptians, we need to be having an option or a choice, whether to be eliminating terrorism or surrendering to the terrorists. How do you see the success of the Egyptian state in fighting terrorism in the past few years under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and the awareness and the will of the Egyptian people to be fighting terrorism?
Well, this is for the last few years. We as a normal person walking in the street in the morning, a regular Egyptian guy, regular Egyptian lady, the risks and the threats are not there like in a few years before. So I think that we are facing the terrorist attacks and the terrorism movements in the right way. We have to be aggressive about it. We have to deroot it from the very beginning, from its roots. We have to get it out of its roots because we don't have another option. I don't think that the Egyptian mentality will just be able to accept following certain moves.
Yes.
The Egyptian has got its own culture and its own personality. So I think that this is where we are going in the right direction. From my point of view, as an ordinary guy, we have a lot of security is much higher. We go out just like we used to go back before 2010 and 2011 at midnights. We have a lot. We cross our finger for that we have a lot of tourist groups coming in Sharm el-Sheikh and Alexandria
and hosting
so
tournaments
and conferences, tournaments, all African game. All that is good, but when you see the regular pack bag tourists walking the street, this is a sign that you are going in the right direction.
Is it harder that terrorism has so much technology now, and it is easier for the terrorists to be regrouping after every operation? Is it harder to be combating terrorism all over the world?
I think we have the know-how, we have the infrastructure, we have the intelligence, we have the brain to do that. We have an institution that can fight that in different ways. So I don't think that is difficult, and it is not difficult because we have seen now bluntly that it is being shrinking, it's being controlled in a way or another. We have got our control of everything, so it is not difficult. We need the will.
Yes. You're dealing on daily basis with young men and young women from all over Egypt. How do you see the idea of the presidential leadership program initiated by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and of course the thoughts that are going through the minds of the young men and young women of Egypt nowadays concerning terrorism and more specifically fake news and the usage of social media? The second session took place on Saturday, was focusing on that.
Well, with the abuse, let me call it the abuse of social media, because we can use social media in education, like e-learning, and we can use it in propaganda moves or movements that is we post fake news and then we circulate. So it is double-edged tool. So I think that throughout my meetings, my regular conversations with stakeholders, customers, students, you name it.
Yes.
I think that there is a real appreciation for the new move to educate and for the training academy for the youth. That is, Dr. Rasha is the head for the center there, because I heard from, or I was discussing with one of the heads of the Egyptian government institutes, and then he said, well, now we are hiring. a couple of youth graduating from the presidential program.
Yes.
And that was, for me, a surreal thing. And with the presidential program, we had people coming from private universities and from public universities. So it was for both. And I have seen some of them, and they're really nice calibers. Going into the abuse of the social media, I was just saying, double-edged tool that we will have to deal with it. And I think awareness is very important. What happened in the conference, it is an awareness session about what is happening. And it is the role for every institute now to have someone there, like e-learning guy. We have a social media awareness, somewhat like in the information technology department, what to use and what not to use and why is that and so on. Like it should be like a capacity building, learning the new tools. Now the people getting smartphones and using them without knowing how the smartphones can affect their lives negatively or positively. And now you see people circulating news without knowing whether it's right or wrong, and even circulating news that is old. So I have a photo, let's say a piece of news with a nice picture there, and then something, it's look what happened, so and then I look at those people are not Egyptian.
Yes.
I remember this accident, that was about 5 years ago, and then I don't respond, for example. But the rule is, or what is needed is, it is your response saying, this is fake news, or this is an old one. And we have very good influencers as well, very efficient influencers on social media that we should make use of. We should tell them to, or we should ask them to educate people how to use the social media for their benefits, for their daily life things, but for the benefit. Now you can use it for communication and you can use it for malcommunication. So we need to have this, and I think we have this can be even incorporated in the presidential academy, that that we have to have some people, some calibers, Egyptian calibers, will be specialized in that, like people specialized in what is communication through social media and how to make use of and how to know the right from wrong and so on.
Abusing social media has anything to do with age or education?
Okay, I will exclude age, and it is not education, it is whether the ignorant, he can be educated but ignorant. He can be graduating from a very nice university, but he didn't read but books from the university or from the school. He did not read a lot. He was not exposed to a lot of culture, diversified topics. So I think it is, if I will call it, we'll have a role of education that is minor, and ignorance, which is the illiteracy of the youth itself. This is important. They have to be knowledgeable and aware. It's awareness, not education. It's aware what to use and how.
So we didn't have this awareness in 2011 during the uprising, in your opinion, because we could see, as in Syria, in Libya, in Iraq, that social media can be undermining a state and causing social insecurity.
We didn't see that in 2011, and actually for me it's a I think people were using BlackBerry, the BBM, more because it was not, that was the only thing working at that time.
Yes.
And I think with 2011, it was abused by certain groups that manipulated
possibly from outside of the country.
Outside from the country, or they have agents inside the country, but it was abused and malused. And for me, after 2011, not during 2011 even, after 2011, 2012 and 2013, we had a lot of abuse of social media with a lot of photos being posted there. Even the photo that is really, I should grade it as parental guide 18 because of a lot of blood or a lot of things. This should not be used. Why should you circulate a photo like this? Why should you fake a news? Why should you circulate a piece of news without really even comprehending whether this can be logical or not. So I think that it was kind of abused in 2011 and 2012 as well, and until now it's being abused, but in different levels.
We did see during the conference and during the second session the generation or the fourth generation warfare as an expression being used during the session. How do you think we can be identifying this expression to the normal citizen in Egypt and all over the world?
I think this is a term that is being used now in communication, in the science of communication, science of fighting terrorism and so on, intelligence.
Yes.
That this is the fourth generation. It's not anymore a rifle, but this is a different thing that we are manipulating the people through pieces of news, pieces of that we wanted to reach in a different way. Even rumors, it has got its science. There is science in communication. It's called how to fight rumors, or how to increase rumors, how to throw a piece of info that's a small one, and then at one time it will get enlarged at your opportune. So this is all sciences, and unfortunately
it's being used in Egypt and
against us in different countries, of course.
Yes.
It is of course, it is worldwide. We are not the only case. However, Egypt, as the president said, it is the country that holds everything around. It is the pivotal. It is a pivotal country. So it was a lot of attack on us, and for this reason, we suffered more than other countries. But we had institutions that could control the damage. The collateral damage there could have been controlled by institutions that defends the country. And it is very important to know that the fourth generation, I'm sure that there is something coming, will be fifth generation.
Yes.
And sixth generation, because the type of wars, it is different. The type of population is different, type of education is different, the type of technology being used is different. So I'm sure that there is something coming after that. Once this fourth generation will be exhausted, we will get something new after that, the type of wars being played around with different different populations.
Studies mentioned during the conference and this session in specific stated that about 33% of the internet users are being subject to false or fake news. How do you see this affecting their mentality here in Egypt? To be constantly subjected to false news?
I think not only in Egypt, but it's abroad as well. And I think in Arab countries most than that.
Yes.
However, the way we use the usage of internet and usage of social media in Egypt is different. The usage of internet in Egypt is completely different than the usage of internet abroad in Europe, let's say, for example. The way you use emails abroad, or the way you use your network or the Wi-Fi at home is different than here. Here you're using the Wi-Fi more to load movies, for example, but you don't see that because people abroad are calculating things. But we have different approach toward that. So I think the Egyptians, with the abuse, with the 33%, your question, coming back to your question, yes, I think that is being reflected on the population. I would say if the study said that, and it is right study, and it's based on methodology, it is a scientific methodology, this should have like a reflection on the Egyptian population as well.
Before the invention of social media and
that was
using,
good time.
Yes, social media, President Assisi said that the state of skepticism in Egypt started more than 50 or 60 years ago. How do you think the Egyptian state managed to be going through all these warfares from 50 years ago and 60 years ago and up till
we are actually Egypt went through different wars in different forms, and it is being mentioned in the holy books,
yes,
in the three holy books, that this is a place that will always have it will be pivotal, it will be a cornerstone for many things. We went through many things. In 50s, you have the in the 50s you had the war. It was the war between between 1956. That was a period of skepticism and rumors and so on because of the war at that time. And during the 67 to 73, we had a lot of skepticism, and the Egyptians were using jokes, not social media. And even I think that President Sadat, bless his soul, even mentioned that in one of his speeches about people are using jokes against him, and he had a strategic thing to hide things, and people are using.
But why do you think we see that here in the country, even in defeat?
I think this is it is
not the bigger portion of the country or the citizens, yes, but we should be sticking together.
It's defense
right
mechanism.
now.
I think this is defense mechanism. Sometimes you make fun of yourself, and sometimes you just vent out. So I cannot address that to anyone, and I cannot say that about any fellow Egyptian yet. During the 1971, 1972, there was when President Sadat gave a speech about the year of smog year. People made joke about it, and made joke about many things, and people did not believe that we crossed the canal in 1973 until they saw the army, the military coming back. And they thought that it's like 1967. Same applies with without social media. A lot of rumors about increase of prices, customs, many things. This is the nature of the thing. This is human nature. Yet the technology helped the human nature to get the worst of it out of it.
Yes,
it's easy. Now, if I WhatsApp you now, I will not tell you good morning. It is one of the things that now we are sending messages through the WhatsApp, and then I just thought about, okay, I will send you, how about that in this? Where is the good morning? There is no good morning, because I was thinking about it's a cycle. And once I send you something, you will forward it. Now they say it's not more than 5, and then you will take one of them, and then you repeat, and so on. You can forward to hundreds. So what do you forward? Do you forward a piece of wisdom, a piece of advice, a piece of news, what? And then you find people even getting religion into that, and adding the religion touch to the messages, and they will make you feel guilty if you don't forward it, and they don't know how do people get that. And then after that, once you and then with everything you say now, okay, let's do a group on the Facebook or on the Messenger or WhatsApp. All these are social media things. Why? To exchange the news. Why? And then once I send you a photo or a piece of news, you will send it to 5 more. Yes. And the 5 will send to another 5. And then you will not ask me whether it is true or not.
I believe it.
You believe it. It's coming from me. How don't you believe it? It is. And then one of the 5 will take it.
A lot of people are spreading the same rumor or the same lie.
And then at the very end, you'll find that the piece of news is fake. It is a behavior thing. We have, for this reason, I was just telling you from the very beginning, we need awareness. We need education about that. It is just like when people get their ICDL certificate for computer knowledge. Yes. The computer usage or the internet usage knowledge is very important. They should have education and awareness about that.
Speaking of fake news and the rumors and the campaign of lies that we did see against Egypt, against the president, against the Egyptian army in the past weeks, and President Sisi spoke about this during the second session of the National Youth Conference. He stated that the campaign of lies and the campaign of rumors is always there following an achievement for the Egyptian state, following a success for the Egyptian state. More specifically, when we have a new city, when we have a new administrative capital, when we have a success against terrorism, combating terrorism here in the country. Do you think that we as Egyptians, we need more awareness, that we need to see that we have an achievement and then we have the rumors and the lies? It is always there, side by side, and then we can see who's on the good side and who's on the bad side. Do you think that we need more awareness and we need to be sticking together and uniting together and supporting the country?
Okay, how did we know about the fabrication of news and the word propaganda? We knew about it in the 40s, early 40s, with World War II and the German propaganda machine, and how did they use the fake news and so on in order to shake the lines of the opponent. Okay, why do I want to shake the line of the opponent? Because it is a threat. He's my opponent, it's strong and it's getting stronger. I have to shake him. If I cannot shake him with a rifle, I can shake his morale. Okay, by analogy, let's take it here. With every achievement, we always have either groups coming onto the social media underestimating the achievements. Even in sports, when we achieve things, but that was in 2013 and 2014. Now it disappeared. They used to underestimate the achievements. Once we have even a visit from the president to the cathedral, the new cathedral in the new capital. Yes, you have, this is an achievement. So you'll have always just a machine of warfare at the back, just sending and underestimating the achievements, because this is a war. Once I take a step, and I succeed in one step, I take a mile from you or a square from you, like a chessboard. The other one has to do something. Yes. When he or she is frustrated or the group is frustrated, what they do, they just give a defense. I just was telling you, defense mechanism. Just let me underestimate what you did. Let me make a caricature about you. By the way, this is in the fallacy. In the fallacy that we teach to people, we say, okay, there is a complete chapter about fallacy. One of the fallacies is that when someone is caricaturing, when I want to underestimate what you're saying, I will make fun of it. Simply, by analogy, it is the same.
Yes, and turning to the third and final session of the National Youth Conference in its 8th edition, with the participation of 1,600 young men and young women from all over Egypt, and in the attendance of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Saturday. It was the session of Asking the President. Let's see more about what happened in this session in the upcoming report.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi addressed a number of questions on key social, economic and political issues asked by ordinary citizens as they asked the President's session at the 8th National Youth Conference. Answering a question on reforming education, President al-Sisi said that education is part of forming and rebuilding the Egyptian character. He stressed that the real education would lead to a character that is difficult to control with modern technology. The President added that the educational system is not enough to rebuild the character. Around 4,000 and 3,500 questions are submitted to the organizing panel over a 4-day period. On the threat of terrorism, President al-Sisi estimated that there are currently 250,000 militants in the region. He reiterated that Egyptians should be united to face terrorism. The president spoke to Egyptians who had shared videos on social media that have made allegations of mismanagement of the state funds, which the president described in an earlier session in the conference as lies and fabrications. He stressed that the state would hold those who defame the state accountable. He described Egyptians as the valve of security against terrorism, cautioning that terrorism will stay with us for a while. President Sisi also said that religious preachers should take a more proactive stand against those who spread false news. The president said that reforming religious discourse could only happen through determination, belief, and action. President Sisi also addressed questions about the region, describing it as a body which was coherent until crises hit Syria, Libya, Yemen, and the attempts in Egypt. Answering a question on the recent Sudanese revolution, President Sisi said that changes in any country usually have negative and positive impacts. Discussing talks between Egypt and Ethiopia on the impact of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, President Sisi said that they were not affected by what happened in Sudan. On the long-awaited municipalities elections, the president said that he expected them to be held by the end of 2019 or early 2020.